Welcome everyone to our talk about the importance of fire prevention. Today we are aiming at teaching business owners the importance of fire prevention and the different aspects of it. We will start with the basic idea of education, enforcement, and engineering, otherwise known as the 3 E's. Next, we will move to talking about how code is enforced in our jurisdiction and how we apply it to both new and existing occupancies. We will then go over a few organizations that determine the fire resistance of different materials and the type of tests that are used to determine the fire ratings of these materials. Now, when we look at the concept of the 3 E's, we can know to an extent what they are by just looking at the word. So, when we are looking at them and we see education, we can figure out that the basic idea of this is the teaching of fire prevention to others, just like we're doing in this video. Moving on from education to enforcement is where we start talking about how we enforce the codes and keep them from being broken to help save the lives of those in potential fires or even to keep fires from happening. Engineering is one of that can be a little bit confusing because the word can have such a wide meaning. In this instance, we are talking about looking at how to improve the quality of building materials and how to make the building aspects safer from fire. If you remember from the beginning what we are going to be talking about today, you'll kind of see that we are going to hit all of these in an in-depth way just a little bit. So, enforcement of code can be difficult. The easiest way to enforce anything in today's day and age is with a fine. When something is found wrong, you get a fine. When you get pulled over, you get a fine for disobeying a speeding or whatever the ticket's for. Same thing with fire. So, to start with, we need to find the issues. What better way than an inspection? Now, with an inspection on fire safety, it can be a little harder to hide things because of the type of inspection. This inspection is going to go through and look at how the building was put together. Were the right materials used in the right places? How is everything put together? Is there smoke alarms and sprinklers where needed? Where with an inspection for something like OSHA, something that normally happen can be done right if it is known the inspection is happening. This really can't be done with this inspection. If an issue is found, it usually has a price to pay for it for having that issue. Talking about how code is enforced and talking about how code is enforced can bring up the question how to apply a code to an existing buildings or maybe even a new one. Well, in answer to this, a new one can be done rather easily as you can change things that are needed as you go. Changing things to match new codes in an existing building, however, can be difficult. How this is handled would depend a lot on what the code relates to and how large the change would be. With some things that are not as life-saving as others but are better than an already existing code, may be okay for the building not to do it. However, when it comes to something that can be highly likely to save lives, the building would be given a date by which they must have the update done to the building. There are many different organizations that determine the fire resistance of building materials. Many of these organizations will even test their own materials to see how it resists to fire. One such organization that advocates for the use of a certain material is Gypsum Association. On their website, they explain how to do fire resistance testing done. The Gypsum Association has an explanation of how materials are tested on their website. The test is ASTM E119, also known as the standard test method for fire tests of building construction and materials. One of the tests is a resistance test. During this test, the material is put in a fire until certain conditions are met. Once the conditions are met, the test comes to an end, but by putting it into the fire, you can see how long it is resistant to the fire, hence being called a resistance test. Another test is a hose stream test. During this test, the material is subjected to a fire hose stream and how it holds up against it. With these tests and others, we can ensure that the materials used for the construction of buildings is the best we possibly get. On top of this, we use the fire codes to ensure that there is a way out if a fire does happen, and how we can enforce these codes as well. It is always important to ensure that your business and building are up to code in all ways that you possibly can, so that your employees are safe no matter what. At this point, we are done, and I would like to thank everybody for their attention.